At SixSox, we believe that each one of us has the capability to be a winner. We welcome all of you with open arms as our goal is to serve, learn, share, and reach beyond. Today, we bring to you our third session in the Excellence series. With over 20 years of experience in the financial services and over 16 years in learning and development, Hariharan Iyer trained in 26 countries, physically and virtually over the years to better understand the nuances involved in face-to-face and virtual interfaces. He believes that the use of technology is the key to a successful learning experience. With delivering impactful behavioral, soft skills, and risk programs, amassing numerous certifications, Hariharan has been acknowledged as one among the most effective facilitators in the learning and development arena, where he continues to positively impact people and organizations. We know him as our most eligible bachelor with his irresistible smile. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Hariharan Iyer speaking on the longest distance.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to some people who are in other parts of the world, and good evening to a few who are in the other parts of the world. The topic for today is the longest distance. I'm sure this has left you thinking, and there are those curious thoughts in your mind as to what is this longest distance? What is the longest distance all about? So the topic today, as I said, is the longest distance. What I want you to do quickly is get onto the chat box and drop what comes to your mind or came to your mind when you saw the topic, the longest distance. What was there in your mind or what came to your mind when you came across this subject, the longest distance? Deepa, if you could read out all, if you can, or some of the answers that you're getting along, and if you could time me for about 45 seconds.
Some of the answers that we are getting is the mind, distance between the mind and the heart, a long flight, from my bed to the alarm clock on beside the table, the distance between what you hear and see, how long it takes to reach a goal, the distance between two people, some interesting answers there, distance from home to work, how much can we work in a day, distance from the earth to the moon,
Any
the
other?
Distance between bachelorhood and married life.
Super. Thank you so much for those responses. I'm sure you do not have any brownie points. You're not going to be getting any awards or trophies or any gift vouchers for giving those answers. Nonetheless, some of them were very interesting. In fact, one of them was the longest distance from the mind to the heart. In fact, this longest distance is something that we all have to think completely out of the box. Now, let me give you an example. There is somebody who said the distance from the earth to the moon. In fact, somebody I expected said the distance of the entire universe, maybe 13.5 billion years. That would be a different type of an answer nonetheless. But what is this longest distance? So let me take you a little further and ask you and leave you with this question. So if you look very closely, you will see that there is one soldier who is different as compared to all the others. In fact, this soldier is standing out of the line, or rather, is outstanding. Now, the question is, what makes this soldier outstanding? And if I bring that entire motherhood question to ourselves, the question is, what makes us who we are? Different from each one of us. From my neighbors, from my friends, from my colleagues, from my siblings, maybe my own brothers and sisters who are twins. What makes us different? Now, all of this happens because of this one small muscle in our head. I usually say this. This muscle is a terrific servant, but a terrible master. This muscle is constantly working. And it is working on few things that we are actually doing, seeing, feeling, tasting, and touching. In fact, we call them experiences. All the experiences that we have in our life, it records, then sets a belief standard for ourselves, casts it in stone, and from there comes out our behavior. In fact, if you ask me in short, this muscle is actually the workshop wherein all that we are is manufactured here, or it gets produced here. If you are a kind of a person, it's because of this particular muscle right here. That means the longest distance is not from here to the moon or to the sun or anything like going to the alarm clock. The longest distance is actually between two years, because all that happens here. The movement happens here. It all starts here and ends here. The longest distance is actually here. Now, to go further into understanding what are the different aspects in this longest distance, you'd have to travel with me a little further. Now, if you look closely, everybody in their lives goes through a certain stage wherein they are put to a test. They are questioned hard, and then they have to move on. Let me share a similar story with you. I remember I was at the age of 12 when my father chose to make a career change in his life. I was born in this place that he was serving at that point in time. So I had all my friends whom I had gathered since childhood. Those friends of your childhood, you really don't know how you make them. They just happen. Now, at the age of 12, when my father moved place in India, in fact, for every 100 kilometers, culture changes, values change, and more importantly, language changes. When we went to this new place was 200 kilometers away. So naturally, the language had changed. Definitely, the culture had changed. My father put me into a school, and you know what happened? All my friends, none of them were there. They were all in the other place where I had left and come. I had to look for new friends. I was in a spot of bother because I didn't know how to make friends. I did not know how or what is that technique I must use to make those friends. In fact, the rest of the 2 years that I spent at that school, I must tell you, I had no friends. I was all alone. Today, when I read books, when I look back at some of these theories and case studies that are put up, I come across this one aspect, which you also would have come across. I was not growing. I was stuck like that stone, hard from inside and outside, and not willing to change. In the emotional intelligence world, we call it the fixed mindset. I am sure most of you would know by now what is the opposite of fixed mindset. And all of you, I'm sure you will say, the opposite is the growth mindset. I had to move from not having friends to having friends. That means I had to move from being a stone to that tree that is growing. How would I have managed it? I am sure many of you in your lives have been in this situation wherein you have got stuck in a spot and you have not been able to move. Let me tell you something. When I was in that spot, this is how I felt. In fact, the picture next will show you the exact depiction of what I was feeling. At first, when I knew my father is going to change from one place to another, it was like a storm that was rising. I dropped anchor so that I'll have minimum collateral damage. That means I will always I'll go and watch people, I'll keep it safe, I'll watch and then make my friends and make that decision. Over a period of time, when the storm was gone, I did not know how to pull back the anchor, and I became that ship that was stranded right at the beach. The tide had gone and I was stuck. Most of the times when people are in the fixed mindset, this is what happens. They get stuck. They're not able to move. They start to rot. And this is when you have to make that forced decision of adopting and adapting to something. Now, adopting and adapting to something is when you move into from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. How does one move from the fixed mindset to the growth mindset? Over years, I discovered that the best way you can move from this spot of bother where you're rotting to a place where you'll be always refreshed, agile, and willing to take that change is when you are like this. Like that water, which is willing to take the shape of anything that it falls into. If that glass was a conical flask that we see in the chemistry lab, it looked like a conical, it looked in conical in shape. If it was a test tube, it would have looked like a test tube. If it was a pipette, it looked like a pipette. If it was a normal glass, it looks like glass. That's the specialty of water. Now, if water has got this technique of taking the shape that it is in, what do we call it? Nothing but fluidic. It is that one character of water that allows it to get into any shape, any size, any form that it is thrown into. That is what makes water so smart enough to get into any place easily. You'd notice that when you are fluidic, things just happen. Life is easy. It is smooth. You need not have to pull anything. Everything moves all by itself. Now, this is where I need to introduce something new for you. When you become fluidic, you would notice that you're willing to move from that place where you have all of those friends of yours, all that known companionship, all that known world into a newer world where nothing is known, possibly even a road less traveled. That zone or that area where you would like to go and explore. This fish on your screen would not have jumped out if it was not willing to move to that new bowl. So it is all about the willingness. It's all about that one leap that that fish has taken for itself, which I call the quantum leap. If the fish did not take the quantum leap, it would have lived with its friends or in that same bowl and remained there forever. If it had to grow big, if it had to actually improve in its life, and to be more precise, excel in its career, professional and personal, it had to make that jump, that quantum leap. Now, how do you think that that fish would have made that quantum leap? This entire exercise is the longest distance that we travel. And I told you it all happens here in the head. Let's look at it a little more closely. If I have to travel this distance, which is the longest distance, I would have to do a few things first. I need to know where I am at any point in time. And I know all of us love to be here. We love things to be the way it is because we all live in this world of habits. We call that nothing but the comfort zone. In the comfort zone, what happens? You feel in control. You feel safe. You feel, life is just made full of roses and rainbows. Now, if you stay there, as you saw, that boat getting rotted at the beach. So what happens is people have to make that jump. When they make that jump, this is the most critical as point in that change. I call this, or it's also known as the fear zone. I must tell you, most people return from here back to their comfort zone. Why? Because they are not scared of failing. They are actually scared of the world knowing about their failure, not otherwise. So what do? They go back, or they regret and have remorse. In the fear zone, what are the things that happen? First things first, we start giving excuses. We start having a lack of self-confidence, self-belief. Last not the least, we start getting affected by what people tell us. This is the most dangerous spot. If we are able to get through this, we get into the next level, which is said to be the learning zone. This is when we all start to get that magic potion that we need to grow higher in life. In the learning zone, we start acquiring new skills. You start realizing of that potential that you have that you never knew you had. You come across new challenges and you're able to deal with all of them with complete control on them. Last not least, more importantly, this now becomes your comfort zone. You start feeling that, yes, this is my world. In the process, what happens? You go into the next level of getting into something known as the growth zone. What happens in the growth zone? In the growth zone, there are 5 things that happen. And this is where life takes that much needed turn. You set new examples. You start to live your dreams. You start having objectives and you start conquering all of them. Then you find purpose in life. And last not the least, I call this as the longest journey or the longest distance. But the question is, what happens if you travel this distance? When you finish this distance, you actually get into something known as the magic zone. Just like that magic lamp and the genie coming out and saying, how may I help you? Everything is in your control. But let me tell you, something can go wrong here. And that is when we become or come back to the comfort zone. If this becomes your comfort zone, then we have to make that travel again. So the secret is we need to keep traveling every day. That longest distance has to be traveled every day. The moment we stop, we are back into a comfort zone. How does one ensure that travel happens? And that travel happens right here. In the picture you would see, these are actually neurons, real images of neurons. Now, I don't know if you noticed, when you try to get into something new, you struggle to do it, just like driving, just like possibly swimming or picking up a new sport. Over time, when you practice, you notice that it becomes simple and easy for you to execute. If you're wondering how that happens, practice helps you to build those neurons together, which you see on your screen. When they bridge up, automatically, you start becoming good at what you are doing. When you start picking up this journey and doing it often, automatically you will see your skills are much better. So the question is, what are those few things that you need to keep in mind for these neurons to keep growing? The first thing is to be realistic. We need to accept that we have got limitations. The biggest challenge is when we are in denial that we do not have limitations. All of us have limitations. Therefore, being realistic and accepting that we all have limitations and we need to get over those limitations is the first step. Once we understand our limitations, very simple, you embrace these limitations and imperfections. As I would say, run a SWOT, identify strengths, look at the weaknesses, evaluate your opportunities, research on your threats. Always concentrate on your strengths, because your strengths can be made stronger. Your weaknesses will always be a weakness. All you can do is overshadow your strength. Overshadow your weakness using your strength. Last not the least, in this journey, what we do and what we say is going to be very important, because this is where those positive moments start growing. If we inherently have negative deeds and negative words, automatically things go wrong, because people will not support us. And in this journey, support of people is paramount. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, it is important that we keep learning to travel that journey every day, every moment, every second. Because when we do something repeatedly, we actually become a master of it. As Aristotle rightly said, we are what we do repeatedly, and we are a sum total of all of these. Because excellence then is not something that's a flash in the pan, but is a habit. Therefore, if it has to become a habit, we have to do it repeatedly. Now, in this journey, I must tell you, of making friends, I realized that I was that Black Panther who was able to see the end of the tunnel. Even though it was dark, even though the journey was not easy, it was arduous, I must tell you that I learned something. The biggest learning is, in this journey that we are, the longest distance, none of us lose. We either win or we learn. The greatest words I've ever come across by late Dr. Nelson Mandela. We never lose. We either win or learn. In the process, you'd notice that as days pass, you start growing up in your career, in professionally or personally, as I said. That bottom there is the comfort zone. That base keeps growing and growing and growing, bigger and bigger and bigger. And you need to just keep building on it. If we stay there, we would become just like that big stone, which is unmovable. That is where we have to focus on. That longest distance. How to travel it. I gave you the 3 secrets. Those should help you to become fluidic, so that you will be able to travel that longest distance and make your dreams come true.
Thank you, Mr. Hariharan, for this interesting session. We thank you for having attended this session. Always remember, SixSox Minds is here to serve, learn, share, and reach beyond. We're also here to help you and your organization identify talents and help nurture them. We listen to address your requirement to the best of our abilities. You can reach out to us on sixsoxminds@gmail.com for this and more. We look forward to having you all next week too. And on that note, wish you all a great day ahead from all of us at SixSox Minds.